Now, one company that's become synonymous with the dramatic shift to digital payments and e-commerce during this pandemic is PayPal. It's seen a record growth in the number of people using its payment system. The company's also been helping small businesses throughout the pandemic too. It's distributed loans and grants as part of the Paycheck Protection Program here in the United States and beyond. And then there's cryptocurrencies too. The recent announcement that PayPal will allow people to pay with digital assets like Bitcoin has come as the Bitcoin itself surges to a near record high. Dan Schulman, President and CEO of PayPal, joins us now. Dan, wow, you and your team have been incredibly busy. Great to have you on the show. I think from your latest results, the stat that stood out to me, more than 10% of your merchants today have joined PayPal just in the last 6 months alone. You've seen incredible growth.
We have. We've seen almost 35 million new consumers and merchants join our platform in the last 6 months. But if you think about it, Julia, the entire world is moving towards digital. It's not an exaggeration to say that we've seen an acceleration of anywhere between 3 and 5 years in the penetration of online commerce in perhaps the last 3 to 6 months. And so the entire world is moving towards online. People are uncomfortable going into stores and they're gravitating towards online. I think that's going to obviously play out in this year's holiday shopping season as well.
It's quite fascinating what you say about the sort of acceleration that we've seen and the time that we've skipped as a result of the pandemic. Has this resulted in the United States playing catch up to some degree? I mean, the e-payment system's far more developed in Asia compared to what we have in the United States.
Well, I think if you look around the world, and PayPal operates in about 200 countries around the world, you see different regions of the world are at different places. In fact, some developing countries have leapfrogged a whole generation of financial services. They've gone straight to using their mobile phones as a payment system as opposed to using debit or credit cards. And so depending on where you are in the world, digital payments have developed in different ways. But I would say right now, across the world, without question, there's an explosion of digital payments. Volume on our platforms reached all-time highs. Last quarter, our volume was almost $250 billion, and we grew that volume at 36%. And so you can clearly see that the number of people who are now shopping online has gone up tremendously. In fact, this holiday season, the predictions are that people between 18 years old and 55 years old, that 75% of them will spend all or at least half of their shopping online. And that's a tremendous movement from people going in-store to now shopping online.
I mean, these are incredible numbers, Dan. You know, I've spent most of the show talking about vaccines and when we'll get to herd immunity in the United States and beyond. Do you think those kind of numbers are sustainable once we get into a sort of post-COVID or a greater vaccinated world? Or will our behavior revert back perhaps to some degree to what it was before?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. I think my conversations with CEOs of industries around the world, whether it be the healthcare industry, higher education, entertainment, and especially CEOs of retailers, is that post the vaccine and maybe a post-pandemic world, we're not going to go back to what was. We'll kind of leapfrog into a new normal. And that new normal will take advantage of all the things that we've learned in the past 6 to 12 months. It's interesting, the pandemic basically accelerated trends that were already occurring, but it fast-forwarded them rapidly. And so the rise of digital payments, the rise of using your smartphone to pay for things, not just online, but also when you're in the store, makes a ton of sense because there's a lot more value added to both consumers and merchants when that happens. And so I think what you're going to see is people taking the best of what occurred during the pandemic in terms of using technology and then combine it with now a post-pandemic world where we can be out more in the world, and that blurring of online and offline will continue to accelerate.
Yeah, I could keep you talking about this for the next half an hour, but I want to change topics now and talk about, and it's actually very much tied to this, what we've seen in cryptocurrencies as well, in your announcement that you'll allow account holders to use digital assets like Bitcoin, for example, to make payments. Just talk to me about the kind of volumes that you're seeing, because you're being credited or accused of fueling the rise that we've seen, particularly in Bitcoin, but other digital assets too, I have to say.
Yeah, I think if you think about the digitization of industries, as I mentioned, the same thing is happening in financial services. Anywhere between 40 to 70% of consumers want to use cash less. They want to move to forms of digital payment. So think about that. Paper money is slowly but surely going away. And what will replace that? Well, what will replace that are all forms of digital currencies. Those digital currencies could be any one of a number of cryptocurrencies, including Bitcoin, Ethereum, and others. And also, as we talk to regulators and central banks around the world, there's no question in my mind that it's just a matter of when and how, not if, that central banks will start to issue forms of digital currencies as well. And so our move into the space of accepting digital currencies is basically understanding those trends and trying to position ourselves to help shape that future where both central banks will be more digital currency players, as well as forms of cryptocurrencies will move from being just asset classes that you can invest in, but actually can increase their utility by utilizing that cryptocurrency as a funding instrument to do everyday commerce. And I think once we bolster that utility, you'll start to see more stabilization of these different cryptocurrencies and a slow increase in value over time. Of course, today there's still investments and they can go up or down, but our move into the crypto space, working hand in hand with regulators, was to bolster the utility of all cryptocurrencies and digital currencies.
I read that you own Bitcoin yourself. Do you still own Bitcoin? And to your point, which I think is a great one, this balance between the utility value, the transactional value versus the store of value, you holding it as investment. Dan, why do you hold digital assets and Bitcoin, if you still do?
Well, I'm a believer that the world is moving towards digital and that forms of cryptocurrency, like for instance, Ethereum, that are built on more modern technology that can move money faster and maybe less expensively, can put on top of the movement of that money things like smart contracts, can add utility to a payment. And I think it's when we start to move and cryptocurrencies, digital currencies issued by central banks, all under a regulatory framework, have more utilization than just being an asset class. That's when I really think you're going to start to see that move more into the mainstream. And as I look out into the near future, 1, 2, maybe 3 years out, that's a trend that we will definitely see.